practice seeing and mixing value. I'm going to be using this photo of a crystal as a reference. This is a good practice, even with any color, although I recommend using a darker color. Something like yellow will be too light. The nice thing about our reference here is that it doesn't contain any features or details of specific things. It's basically value and shape, which is the best way for us to practice our value right now. Before we jump into the value, I'm going to do a quick sketch with my small brush to know where my composition is going to be. As usual, nothing too detailed. I'm keeping it loose. I just want to know where this is going to sit on my page, on my canvas. There, now we've got a rough idea of where to place our values. I'm going to start off with a larger brush to block in the larger values. So let's look at our dark areas first. I'm going to lean towards a little more purple this time, although I do want it to be dark, so I'm going to mix in a little bit of black. So what I'm looking for here is the darkest areas, and I want to lay those in with my brush. So I'm seeing those, I'm seeing the shape they make, the geometry. Flat brush works great for these straight lines. It's much easier to create straight lines with a flat brush than a round brush. So I'm getting in my darkest darks. I still have a few more darks, but they're not quite as dark. So I'm going to lighten it up just a bit here. Find some of these darker but not quite medium tones. We also don't want to forget about the shadow on the ground. That's going to help give our object some life and natural lighting appearance to it. Just a little bit more here. Okay, good. Now I think we're ready for our lighter areas. I want to keep using this brush. So I'm going to clean it off here. Now let's take a look at our lighter areas. We've got a few very bright, very light areas, so I'm going to grab mostly white here and lay in these really light areas. Even our highlight on the ground here, this will help us establish the overall light situation. Again, nothing too detailed at this point. I'm still keeping it loose, keeping it fresh, just blocking in these values that I see, not worrying too much about how perfect it is or isn't. It's really not my concern at the moment. But now we've at least got our crystal shape and we've got our major values in. If I was using oil, I might be a little more careful, but because this acrylic will dry so fast, I find it easier to build in layers. So the next step is we're going to find our medium tones and our medium values, our medium shapes. So I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. I'm sticking with the flat brush for now because I'm still liking these angles I want to get. So when I talk about medium areas, let's look at one large area. This plane, for example. We've got a few dark areas and a few light areas, but I want to find those midtones. I want to find those values that are a little bit harder to decipher. Now these values are really going to make or break your painting. The darker values, very easy to see. The lighter values, really easy to see. The thing that people begin to struggle with is the midtones. That's where you're going to have a lot of variety and a lot of subtlety. And the more you're able to break those down and see those values accurately, the quicker and easier it will be to make your painting. Okay, I'm using mostly black and white, but that can get a little bit dull. So I'm bringing in a little bit of warm tones, a little bit of purples here and there. Now I want to pay attention to my edges as well. With this crystal, we have some very definitive, very hard edges, which are nice to get those in. But then other areas, we have a much softer thing happening with our paint. Now on those, I want to be a bit softer with my brush mark. I want to blend a little bit more. And I want to find those soft and subtle transitions. And as I'm painting here, I'm not thinking so much about what does a crystal look like? How can I paint more like a crystal? I'm focused purely on the values and purely on the shapes. And this is going to help eliminate some of that stress and anxiety of getting it just right or getting it perfect. Because painting a crystal can be quite difficult. But painting a small gray rectangle, well, anybody can do that. And if you're able to break it down and see those more simplified shapes, the easier it will be for you to paint accurately. Now we're getting close to getting these midtones in here. I started with a nice neutral midtone. It's a little bit green, but its neutrality makes it easier for us to see the values, the darks and the lights. And also, it works as a midtone in and of itself. So if I don't happen to paint each and every green part, that's okay, because that value is still working in the image. Now that I feel like I've gotten to a good place with my medium-sized brushes and medium-sized values, now it's time to switch to my smaller brush. And this is the part you can really sink your teeth in. This is the part you really want to slow down and spend time on. Now I don't have as much time to slow down as much as I'd like, but I'd like to give you an idea of how to approach some of these smaller details. And then on your own, you're welcome to dig in even further. I'm going to add a little bit of blue here to my black and white, a little bit of value, and I'm going to start seeing these edges. I'm really interested in where one plane meets another plane. That contrast there is going to help you distinguish your shapes. Notice the striations in the stones. We have some interesting stripes. Sometimes if I lay a mark in with my brush and it's too thick, I'll just wipe it in with my finger. Your finger makes an excellent blending tool. Sometimes I don't want a strong edge mark. I just want to blend it in a little bit. So I'm going through each area and trying to pull out those subtle details, those small highlights, those small shadows. I notice along the top edge of here, it's pretty dark. I'll bring in some of those. Even within the areas we've already established, I'm noticing, okay, this is actually a little bit darker here. So I'm going to reestablish that and then let that tone be a little bit lighter. Again, it's important to mix up the right value. If you go in to put in a detail and your paint is much too light or much too dark, it's not going to work. It's not going to look right. Even if you've got the exact right size and shape, if you've got the wrong value, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. I'm looking at these interesting areas around the edges where the crystal is more ragged and jagged. I want to get some of those. It's a nice organic contrast to the otherwise very sharp and geometric surface. So now we're starting to get a little bit closer. With something like this, it's the details that can really make your painting pop. And if it's not quite there yet, perhaps you just need to spend a little bit more time on it. I really like these shadows and highlights along the ground here. Getting those nice and gradual fade that I see, that's going to help feel more like a shadow. We'll let that fade out nicely as I gradually bring the brush. I could probably spend many more hours painting these details. That's my favorite thing, is all the little details. But I just wanted to give you a taste of getting this painting off the ground. getting in those essential elements. And then you can spend as much time as you'd like to develop the details and the light and the shadow. Whatever interests you about the subject are the things that you want to keep pursuing. I think we're getting close to a good stopping point here. Again, if you want to pursue a more detailed, more accurate, precise painting, it's all here available to you. This I could go on as long as I wanted, but I've got the structure, I've got the composition, I've got the value, everything in its right place. It's just lacking a certain amount of detail. The best way to practice value is by creating value scales. They may not be the most thrilling thing you'll do as a painting student, but think of it this way. You're developing a skill that will allow you to instantly connect with the way your viewers make meaning out of seeing. There's some pretty powerful value in value.